Good evening. I'd like to call the Butte-Silver Bowl Council of Commissioners regular meeting to order for Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021. Clerk, can we have a roll call?
We have 9 present and 3 absent.
We have 9 present, 3 absent. Please note that Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner Sorich, and Commissioner Fortune will be absent tonight and are excused. Commissioner Shea, can you lead us in the prayer and the pledge?
Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which so greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver Bow. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to approve the minutes of May 19th, 2021.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And clerk, could you please record the vote?
It hasn't gone up.
Oh,
there.
we didn't get it yet. Sorry,
You're
without it closed. There you go, my fault.
All right.
9 yea and 0 nay.
9 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Do we have any items not addressed on the agenda tonight? There's none? Okay. So we'll move on to the Chief Executive's report. First off, I want to kind of express that I'm very proud to represent a body that in 2013 that this commission passed an ordinance to not allow discrimination within our community. And so with that, we did a proclamation on June 1st at noon proclaiming LGBTQ plus month to recognize the anti-discrimination that we have passed here in Butte, and I think that this body has been a leader in the state to not allow that. So that makes me very proud. Lots of things going on locally, and so first off, we're calling together our ARPA funding committee next week. We're going to have our first meeting, so we're going to start kind of identifying projects as we start to move forward and looking at what the ARPA funding is going to do. We're also calling together the repository committee, so where we're going to be putting the tailings as we do the cleanup as well. So those are 2 major things that are going to start to happen in Butte-Silver Bowl in regards to funding and also cleanup in Butte-Silver Bowl. Another thing that with the warm weather, which is awesome, we didn't have a lot of snowpack and a lot of rain this year, so we are going to be imposing water restrictions right away. And starting next Monday, we are going to go to odd and even days. So if you have an odd number on your address, you'll sprinkle on odd days from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 6 to 10 p.m. and then the even days, it would be the same. So we are going to do this. Originally, we'll keep reminding people. We'll put out public service announcements and remind people to conserve water. Hopefully we won't have to get to the point where we are imposing fines or anything on people, but we are in not a crisis mode, but we want to be precautionary on the use of our water. So that's for everyone to know about. The Tommyknockers had a successful first night last night, with maybe one exception that we didn't put in front of the body, and that was the fireworks. But it was a great night. I went out there, was able to throw out the first pitch, and I did not throw it into the dirt, so that was success. I got it to home plate. But it was nice to see. I would estimate there was 400 to 500 people in attendance at the field. Lots of families, lots of kids running around. It was entertaining, and I think everybody had a good time. And so look forward to it. I don't think you could ask for a better opening night, over Memorial Day weekend in Butte. What the heck, it was amazing. So that was great. Also, we have signs that I want everybody to see that are available. If you want to put these yard signs up in your yard, part of our campaign, that these are available for everybody to come. We have them in the chief executive's office that everyone can see. If you want to stop down, we have them available for you. So show, our getting behind the vaccination campaign that we all decided to run here in Butte. And so this is kind of a sign that we can all put out into our yards, and they're not campaign signs, so that's a great thing. Let's see, other things. It just, as the warmer weather comes and everybody starts getting out, just be aware of kids are going to be getting out of school. We're going to be opening the water park and all the other different things, so just be careful out there. So with that, I'm going to close the chief executive's report, and we will move on to any public comment on any items on the agenda tonight. Do we have anybody in the audience? If you are, please come forward, state your name, your address, and what item you'll be talking on tonight. Seeing none, we'll move on to written comments. Do we have any written comments? No written comments tonight. We're on a roll. This is good. All right. Moving on to section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentations. We have one presentation tonight, communication number 2021-252, Ed Randall, Community Enrichment Director, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence for a presentation on the June 2nd, 2021 agenda to provide an update on the Butte-Silver Bowl Community Enrichment Department. Do we have Director Randall with us today?
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. For the record, my name is Ed Randall, and I'm the Director of the Community Enrichment Department for Butte-Silver Bowl. I just wanted to take a few minutes. I know it's hot up here. I know you guys are busy. I just wanted to kind of tell you just a quick update on what we've doing. No numbers, no statistics. So as you're aware, we're the Community Enrichment Department. Right now, we have obviously Community Enrichment, Community Decay, Animal Services, and the Weeds Division. So within that, we enforce junk motor vehicles. We do the mothball, the vacant building, dangerous building, zoning, public works enforcement, and we're going to be working on the abandoned vehicle program here shortly that the police department enforces. I wanted to tell you a couple things. We all know it's been a horrible year with the pandemic going on, but our staff was able to work very closely with the health department, which we're very proud of. They were answering phones, they were doing inspections, they jumped right in and they did a great job. Personally, a couple of our staff received college degrees recently, so we're very, very proud of those folks. We've also asked all of our staff to become qualified for the weed applicator license. I'm happy to say after a year of study and other videos and live streaming and stuff, they've been able to pass at least one or both portions of the test, and it's a very difficult thing to do, believe it or not. Very difficult, so we're proud of them. I know that a lot of people think, our department is just the mothball, the vacant building, and dangerous, because that's what we always discuss, and it's really more than that. They probably see, 25, 30 or more properties a day, our staff, and that's everything from garbage, from yards not mowed, from junk motor vehicles, you name it, anything like that. So the things that we read about or the things that we talk about a lot are really not what we do every day. We do a lot of daily stuff. We're proud to say that we partnered again this year. We do have an alley rally. When the chief executive took office, one of the first things he said was, we're going to have an alley rally, and so we were able to do that. It's open, it's going great. We worked very closely with CCCS to do that, so we're very, very proud of that. A couple things that we would like to do in the next few months. I've reached out to 2 council members to organize neighborhood meetings so that Community Enrichment Department can partner with these folks, have cleanups, provide dumpsters, and at this meeting, it will give their folks an opportunity to discuss with me what issues are important or what not, or what they think we should be doing. So we've reached out to Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Sorich so far. We'd like to get those 2 out of the way and then go from there. So, and when I say out of the way, not that it's we want to get those completed because we think that we can do a lot of work in both those areas. And we think it's very important that those are the 2 that we start with. Let's see what else. Our summer kids are back. We've hired a full summer staff. And so they're out and about. You'll probably see them in trucks. They're picking up garbage. They're doing alleys. They're mowing. You name it, they're doing it. Starting to do the parking lots, abating those. So they're real busy. And just to let you know, we have the same summer kids that we've always had. You know, when they get old and they leave us, they do. But the last 3 or 4 hires that we've had in our department have come from our summer crews. I mean, these kids have been working with us since they were 15 years old, so we're very proud of that. They're great kids, and they do an outstanding job. One of the things that we would like to do this year is we would like to try to find a spot for an uptown dog park. And so we'll be working with a couple of the commissioners to do that. I know that some people want them in their areas, some people don't, but we think that we could find a place because they deserve it up there. We have the great walking park, dog park downtown. We'd love to have one uptown, so we'll be meeting with a few of you folks on that. Other than that, you know, I'm just here to answer any questions that you may have. We're pretty excited about the coming year. We appreciate, although we always don't see eye to eye, we really appreciate and support all of you folks. So we really do respect you, and I do personally. So if there's any questions or concerns, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Director Randall. I just kind of wanted to touch on a couple things. I know a lot of times people have asked questions about where we're at as far as the mothball, vacant buildings, dangerous buildings, and things like that. And we address that how we're going to do this, and most of the things are addressed in our ordinance. But working with Dylan, working with Ed and everybody, we have started a process and working together with the SELA program that's going to help us identify a lot of the issues that we have. Although the ordinance addresses it, if you want to kind of touch base possibly on a little bit of that information.
About, excuse me, Mr. Chief Executive?
Just kind of that we've been working on the process.
Sure.
On
I would
who's
love to.
identified, and
So-
I know Dylan's here as well.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chief Executive, members of council, we meet weekly with the Chief Executive and his Chief of Staff. We have planning and zoning, Karen Burns is involved, historic preservation, and community enrichment. The reason we do that is because we're all involved in this type of work. I know that a lot of you folks, or some in some of the community, I suppose, think that we're anti-historic preservation because we're doing these things. In 10 or 15 years, the people that are sitting where you guys are going to thank us and thank you folks for passing these ordinances. These are the things that are going to save these buildings. You know, unfortunately, we've had a couple buildings that have come up that were just not salvageable, and I understand that that bothers folks, but that's going to happen because we are where we're at. The mothball, the mothball and the vacant and the dangerous buildings, they all go hand in hand. We didn't have the dangerous building passed or bring it to this body so that we could tear down buildings. We did it so that we could stop what was going on and make people invest in our community, just like every other community in Montana does. We don't think that we deserve less. That's why we have the mothball and the vacant building. That's why we ask that the Chief Executive and the Chief of Staff meet with us weekly. That's why we have Lori and Dylan Pipinich and Karen Burns and those folks meeting weekly. That's a lot of time taken up for folks that are busy, but they take the time every week to meet. We go over everything. We will have Excella so that everyone can share information a little bit better. You're right, Mr. Chief Executive. And that's right around the corner. But everything that we're doing is to ensure that people invest in our community. For many, many years, people have just bought these buildings and sat on them. And unfortunately, they're in the condition that they're in. When we passed the mothball ordinance, everyone was against that, and we thought that was just going to be the easiest thing to pass, and it just wasn't. And I think that shows the split in the community, or at least in a few of you folks and maybe a couple staff. But we're doing these so that we can clean our area. You know, we can make sure that when police and fire go into these buildings, that they're safe. We don't, you know, we had a meeting with the fire services director the other day, and one of the things he brought up was, you know, we have to go in these buildings. And in the condition that they're in, it's horrific that we're putting their lives at stake every day. He thanked us for doing what we're doing. And I think that in the coming years, people will find that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and I'd like to just kind of bring up, Dylan, kind of just to tell where we are in the process, because we did start a flow chart so that people could do that, just so he could come up and just kind of, to do this. I had my secretary, Stacy Henderson, kind of take a flow chart that we use conceptually, and then Dylan kind of ran with it, and he can kind of explain how it's going to go just real quick, just to touch base a little bit on that.
Right,
That'd be
Mr.
okay?
Chief Executive, when you asked Dylan Dylan actually said, hey, you know what, I see what you have here, I think I can make it better, and he did.
Yep.
So, Dylan, is he here? Oh, my God. He snuck up on me here.
I pulled him up.
You did.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, members of the council. For the record, I'm Dylan Pipinich, Assistant Planning Director. So kind of where we're at with Excella is planning and building codes. Right about a year ago was in dire need for some new permitting system. So we've been pushing Excella for all the departments, and Lori and I really dove in because we were about to not be able to issue any permits. We are now live with planning and building codes only, and have been live since February, and it's going good. We got the back office going, and we're figuring out the system, and we're learning it as staff so we can roll it out to the public. With the dangerous buildings and all the attention around that, and the need to be able to track efficiencies and things with that, we've started looking at the workflow process and the requirements to add the dangerous building ordinance to Excella, and how to track these dangerous buildings through the software that we have. You can create workflows, track dangerous buildings, track complaints of dangerous buildings, and follow the process all the way through. And the advantages of that are, it's set in stone in the computer, so you have to do the same process every single time. Not that we don't, but you can follow timelines, you can follow decisions, who made the decisions, you can keep that documentation all in Excella, and anybody with a login on the staff side can view it. So if any questions at any point in time of where a dangerous building is at, what is being done about it, it just really creates internal efficiency where we can track that. So because of the recent ones, we've moved forward, and that's probably going to be one of our next permits, our next processes to go to Excella. And yeah, we're getting the process down with ours, and it's only going to make all processes across the county more efficient and faster.
Thank you, Dylan. I just kind of wanted to point that out, because I know that there'd been a lot of conversation, and Ed and John Moudray and all of our staffs have been working together, and I think people were just kind of curious on where we were on that. So thanks, Dylan. I don't want to take the thunder away from Ed on his, but I know there had been questions about that, and so I wanted it just kind of so that you were able to talk about that a little bit tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Chief Executive, I think all the departments are on the same page.
Yep. Okay.
So I would be, glad to answer any questions or concerns that you folks may have, but I'd like to thank my staff for what they've done this year. They're a bunch of great folks, and that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Randall. Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive.
It's on. Yeah, it's on.
Okay. Ed, thanks for being here tonight and all that stuff. And I want to personally thank you for when I first started this job about, I believe, 3 or 4 weeks ago. There were some issues there, and you responded immediately. and it was a job well done and all that. And as I drive by certain areas of my district and all that, I mean, it just seems like this is going to be a forever job and all that. I just have a couple questions, and none of them are facetious or anything like that, is the fact that I think everybody at this council table, including the public, if you have a procedure that basically if there's a car, if there's a building, you mentioned that if there was an abandoned car, there would be a ticketing process going on and all that stuff. So is the procedure going to be that we call community enrichment and they handle the deal with the fire department and the police department, or do you call like the police department or whatever? Is there a procedure that we need to follow?
Thank you, Commissioner Reardon. Director Randall.
Yeah. Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Reardon, members of council. Yes, Commissioner Reardon, if you would contact Community Enrichment Department for those things, we'll take care of them. We work very closely with parking. We work very closely with the police right now. You know, we're trying to make some changes that will benefit everyone. So if you contact us, Cindy Winston is the one that kind of flows through everything and makes sure that everyone's working together. So we'd be glad to take all those concerns or complaints.
Follow-up,
Okay, follow.
Commissioner Reardon.
You talked about this citywide cleanup. Is the possibility, or all the districts going to be able to participate in this year?
Commissioner Reardon, Director Randall.
Yeah, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Reardon, members of council, we're going to, yes, to answer, we're going to try to get everyone, but your area is going to be one of them.
Okay,
And
great.
we'll reach out in the next couple of weeks. We would like to have these done not at the end of the summer, but during the summer. You know, we would like to have it with a neighborhood meeting so that people can say, hey, we don't like what you're doing, or can you do this different, or what can you do? I want to be able to look them all in the eye and tell them what we can do and what we should be doing, and if there's mistakes made, then I'll take responsibility for that, but we want to have a neighborhood meeting with it. So why don't I call you next week?
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay, all
Director
right.
Randall.
I got one more. Can I have one more?
Follow-up, Commissioner Reardon.
Okay, I got one more, Ed. Is basically with these buildings and that, and I don't know if we had the discussion, but I've discussed this with some of the other commissioners, and there's starting to be a strong feeling about a performance bond with people buy these buildings that would cover the demolition of these buildings if they never met the requirements to be demolished or to be fixed up. Is that a possibility? Is something we could look at down the road, seeing as that we don't get stung with some of the fees sometime, most of the time?
Commissioner Reardon, Director Randall.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Reardon, members of council. You know, we're willing to look at anything. I've said this for many years, and now it's where we're at. You know, we started late with planning and zoning. We started late with community enrichment and different things, and we're in the position that we're in. And I think that any idea is a good idea. When I call you, we can discuss it more. I'll surely talk to the county attorney about it, and we'll go from there.
Thank you for
Thank
all
you,
you do.
Director.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr.
Any other
Commissioner
que-
Reardon.
Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, John. And your staff is pretty good at answering calls, but I also email, and I think that's appreciated because it documents everything, and then I keep track of it myself to see how things are going along. But you also do snow removal. I know you have Zane that does that. You didn't mention that, and that should be kudos to your department. And then I understand you're going to be taking on the parking control because you have enforcement abilities where they didn't really have that at parking control, I guess, in some ways. But so can you tell us a little bit about how that'll work? The parking control you'll be down at the Front Street office, correct? Okay.
Commissioner Shaw, and I'll address just a piece of that real quick, and then I'll let Ed. Yeah, as I came in, one of my goals is to put enforcement where we do enforcement. And so I've worked together with our individual departments, and there's two places that we do enforcement, right? Police and community enrichment. So looked at both departments, what would be a better fit for this, and so it was, I made the decision and went to the different departments and decided that community enrichment was probably the best place to put this. I met with Director Randall, John Mudray. We talked through this along with Karen Burns. Karen had done an admirable job. It's not because they were doing a bad job, but I think that enforcement needed to be there. So that was kind of the direction, and it puts all the enforcement together. When we talk about junk vehicles, talk about trailers, parking, that we needed to have that enforcement across the county for the most part. So with that, I'll let Ed kind of answer the questions here, but this came from my direction, and I want everybody to understand that came here. We had multiple meetings about this and why we were doing what we were doing. So, Director Randall.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of council. Zane does a great job. I wished I have everything written down here and I get a little quick. We just do so much. It's all enforcement. It's what we do. It doesn't mean we do more than anyone else, but this is what we do. And so that is an easy segue into parking. It's what we do. Butte-Silver has paid for several studies about how to do things, and every one of them comes back and says, do this and do that, and then community enrichment put all enforcement into one department. And so the chief executive saw those when he first came on board. He was obviously with BSB, but when he became chief executive, he looked at that, and again, he told you his process, and then contacted us. And so we feel it's going to be a seamless move. The great thing about this move is that Karen Burns is not retired. She's not moving away. She is, a phone call away or walking into her office to get any information. We think it's just going to be something that should have been done a long time ago. We feel that it's what we're good at. We feel that by amending the ordinance and taking a few things out, if I'm going to be real honest with you, we want to take out of the parking ordinance everything except for parking. In other words, trailer enforcement and stuff like that. Because our guys wouldn't be good at doing parking enforcement, and those guys aren't as good as I think our guys at doing that other type of enforcement for trailers and boats and all the other stuff that we see really downtown. And so we're going to try to bring to this body that amended ordinance. Hopefully it gets passed, and we're going to move right away. So we've been in discussions with Karen Burns, the chief executive, county attorney, the chief of staff, in how to exactly do this. We know the work to do, just how to move it and to go that route. And I think we have a plan. It will be staffed down at our department, even though a lot of the work is uptown. That's fine. In other towns, very seldomly do you just have parking, like walk out of the courthouse and be able to just do their route and everything. Sometimes you got to drive to those, and we have vehicles for that. So we feel very comfortable in what we're doing. We have an incredible relationship. We've been working with the abandoned vehicle people, the police department, and parking for several years. I mean, we coordinate every day. It's like I talk to the county attorney every day. My staff, Cindy Winston, talks to parking or abandoned vehicle people at least 4 or 5 times a day, so that we can have one person do the work. Okay. So we feel that we're qualified, and we're very excited to have it.
Thank you, Director Randall. Commissioner Shaw, follow up.
Thank you. Thanks, Ed. It'll kind of be like a one-stop shop. Like if I have an issue with one place that, I won't name who, that has parking violations and abandoned vehicles and junk cars, that are up on blocks or something, I would just make a call or an email and address all of those to one place. That would be your department, is that correct? Or is it still the parking control? They're just physically down there, but they'll be under your direction, the way I understand it.
Commissioner Shaw, Director Randall.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, Madam Chair, members of council. It'll be a one-stop shop.
Okay.
We don't do anything better than Karen's done with parking. We do it differently, and we track all our numbers, so the calls will go into one number just like anything else, or an email to, we have our lead person one person is like Zane Gleason does a lead on one, Cindy Winston does a lead on the other stuff. All those will go to Cindy, And Madam Chair, you're a perfect example of why this should happen. I know that I've seen emails from you that has police and parking and community enrichment and this department trying to get one thing done. And so this is going to be a one-stop shop for everything, but including this, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Randall. Any other questions? Commissioner O'Neill.
Thanks, Chief Executive. More just a comment. Thank you. I'd just like to thank your staff for the interesting calls and emails that are sent, at least me. So thank you. They probably won't stop. So I do appreciate you guys' time and efforts you've been making happen. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner O'Neill, I would like to thank you. You're very good to work with. The staff loves you. I mean, you're always one to say thank you, no matter what, if they can accomplish what you want. I was going to call you last week and tell you that, but they really do appreciate you, so thank you.
Any other questions?
Just
Commissioner Shaw.
one thing I forgot, Ed, sorry. You were talking about the Excella, and I assume that's a software of some sort. And so the idea of coordinating something like one place that has all these things, there would be, well, let's just talk about a demolition. You know, if the steps that are followed, I know every building's different, they all have their own features and their own issues, but I just all the time have people ask me, so what happens first and what's next after that? And I just didn't know if there was like the flow chart that I believe the chief executive was talking about that would give me some kind of a playbook, let's call it, for talking to my constituents.
Commissioner Shaw, I can address that even just a little bit. It's a work in progress kind of right now. Dylan has formatted pretty much a flow chart that we're going to be able to do, and we're probably going to bring it to the commissioners and run everybody through it kind of to show you exactly, because there's going to be steps that don't even have to have certain departments even involved in. It'll allow you to be able to chart exactly where everything goes. It's a work in progress. Dylan kind of gave me the bird's eye view of what it might look like, and I can have Dylan come up just real quick just to answer that question a little bit better, but I think that we will come forward and we'll do a presentation to the council just addressing how that will look. And if you could just do a real quick snapshot of that, I'd appreciate it, Dylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Shaw. So that's exactly what it is. There's parts to Excella. It's a software program that's online. It stores everything on our servers. It keeps all the information forever. And what it does is for each permit or each dangerous building in this case, it creates a record. And with that record, you input a workflow process, which really is a flow chart. And the computer knows how to follow the flow chart. And it's kind of if you say yes or no to this, you go to the next step, or to go to this step or whatever. And you design the flow chart, and then the computer knows just to follow the flow chart. So the process for dangerous buildings, our process actually is fairly simple. It's the buildings that are complicated, and how you handle each one of them. Excella will find efficiencies in our process. It'll create the ability for anybody to know that needs to know at this time where each project is and everything. And it's just a really good tracking and record-keeping device that finds those efficiencies.
And one of the things that I will say is that Dylan showed me is that Excella will also put in reminders saying, we're coming up on a timeline. This needs to be addressed. And so it sends out even reminders to the people within that chart. So Commissioner Shaw,
Just
follow
a
up.
quick as a question is, so that this would be available to council members so that we could look at our district, for example, and or just an address, or in other words, we have access to that as well. We can see that flow as it's going along.
Commissioner Shaw, Dylan. Sorry.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Shaw, so there's two sides to the Excella program. There's the back office that staff has access to. That's what we're utilizing right now. We're getting to learn the back office, how the process works in the planning and building permits section. And then we will, the other side is a citizens portal side where any citizen can log in and create a username and password in an account, and they can track their permits and their things that they have submitted. And we have the ability to control, on the citizen side, how much information they see and how much they don't. So once we start rolling that out, we'll determine what everybody can see and what is appropriate for everybody to see for all permits.
I'm really looking forward to this. It's going to be nice.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dylan.
Yep.
Director Randall, any other questions for Director Randall? Would you like to close, or?
Oh, no, thank you for your time. Do appreciate all of you, and I'll call you, Commissioner, and we'll go from there. Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. And I wanted to thank John and Ed personally as well, because they do, much like law enforcement, they deal with a lot of issues that people don't, most of their calls are not the happiest calls. They're dealing with problems in our community, and they do a great job. So thank you for what you do. All right, moving on. We're going to Section 2, Consent Agenda. We'll go to Committee Reports, Section A through 1, and Communications, Section B, 1 through 20. Do we have any friendly amendments or segregations? Commissioner Reardon.
I'd like to segregate number 4, 20, 21-255, please. I just have
Okay. That's number 4, 2021-255. Any other segregations? Seeing none, Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to approve consent agenda A 1 through 4 and B 1 through 20, with the exception of item number 4, which is communication 2021-255.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? And clerk, please record the vote.
9 yea and 0 nay.
9 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving back to communication number 2021-255, Chris Wilson, Tiffin Administration requesting Council of Commissioners authorization for Chief Executive J.P. Gallagher to sign a lease with purchase agreement with Town Pump for 24 acres in the Montana Connections Business Development Park. Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Kristen, may I call you that? I don't want to hold everybody up. This is kind of the first thing I've heard about it. It's a great thing happening out there for you guys. I guess my basic question is, are they going to build a warehouse? Is this going to be a fuel center? Or what is the function of this lease? Are you able to disclose that at this time?
Commissioner Reardon, Kristen.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Reardon. They are actually planning on doing a transload, liquid fuel transload. In the lease, currently it's contemplated DEF, which is diesel something. But they are looking and will be doing transloading, mostly of fuel type things, is my understanding, yes.
Okay. One more question, please. Is this going to get started immediately? Is this a process that is waiting to start, or are we, how far?
Commissioner Reardon, Ms. Rosa.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Reardon. The construction of the facility, I don't know that they'll actually be constructing a warehouse type facility. They are a little bit ahead of us. There's no paved road to that parcel just yet. There is access to it, but there's actually no paved road to that parcel yet. But they are very interested. They tell me they want to get going early, but we need to kind of sit down and make sure that we can get them access to that parcel.
Thank you for your great information. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Commissioner Reardon, would you like to make a motion?
Can you make a recommendation?
Yeah, I would like to recommend that communication number 2021-255 or 255 be approved.
Concur
and-
and place on file.
And concur and place on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place on file communication number 2021-255. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
9 yea and 0 nay.
9 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to Section 3, ordinance and resolutions introduced in the judiciary. We have two that will move on to judiciary. I just want to refer to them. Number 1, Council Bill number 2021-05, ordinance number 2021-05, and resolution number 2021-22. So please just refer these to judiciary. Moving on to Section 4, ordinance and resolution suspension of the rules for final passage. We have two, resolution number 2021-20 and resolution number 2021-21. Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move for the suspension of the rules for the purpose of passing Council Resolutions 2021-20 and 2021-21 by waiving subsection 7 of Rule 36 of the Rules and Order of Business of the Council of Commissioners, thereby having it considered for advanced passage without reference to the Judiciary Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Anything on the question? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Do we know how much money is in this fund this year, and do we know how it's going to be spent? Maybe Director Neary can answer that question.
Which resolution
one?
are you referring to, Jim?
Yeah.
Requesting distribution of bridge and road safety and accountability, BARSA,
Okay.
2021-20.
Do we want to do this when we do the motion on it, after
Yeah,
we
we're just
suspend the rules?
suspending the rules.
We're suspending the rules
Okay.
first.
Sorry,
Okay.
I jumped.
That's okay.
Oh, Mark, you might as well come on up, though.
Come on up.
Because it's going to come to you.
Back and forth.
So we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
9 yea and 0 nay.
9 yea, 0 nay. Moving back to resolution number 2021-20. Clerk, can you please read the caption?
Council Resolution Number 2021-20, a resolution requesting distribution of bridge and road safety and accountability, BARSAA program funds, and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to place Resolution 2021-20 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on final reading. Anything on the question? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Mark. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Commissioner Fisher, Director Neary.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Fisher for the record, I'm Public Works Director Mark Neary. I'm not exactly sure on the amount of money. I think it was $850,000 right in there somewhere. And this is for both resolutions, one city, one county. And then the money's going to be spent on Mercury from Shields to Arizona. Mill fill, curb and gutter, and sidewalks.
Thank you, Director Neary. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Now, that will be the only project we're going to do with this $850,000.
Commissioner Fisher, Director Neary.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Commissioner Fisher, we're a little shy on the money, so we will have to take some money from our road fund to do it. But yeah, it'll eat up the whole budget.
Commissioner Neary. Follow-up, Commissioner Fisher.
Once again, thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Did we at one time have an agreement with the state for the west side of Mercury from Utah?
Commissioner Fisher, Director Neary.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Fisher, they looked into, as far as the alignment, is that what you're talking about?
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I thought at one time we had a deal with the state where they redone Mercury Street And in that agreement, maybe I'm not sure, in that agreement, I thought the state was to take over Mercury Street from the west side of, I think it's Utah, right there by the rib store, Mesquite Grill.
Commissioner
And they'd
Fisher.
done that a year or so ago, I
Yeah.
think, or 2 years ago.
Director Neary.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Fisher, the intersection at Utah is MDT's, but Mercury Street to the east is ours, I believe.
Director Neary. Okay,
Thank
follow
you.
up?
No, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Nair. I appreciate the input.
Commissioner Fisher? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Anything else on the question? And this is on final reading again. Could commissioners please vote? Cindy, I don't think you're up yet. And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
9 yea and 0 nay.
9 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to resolution number 2021-21. Clerk, please read the caption.
Council Resolution Number 2021-21, a resolution requesting distribution of bridge and road safety and accountability BARSAA program funds and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to place Council Resolution 2021-21 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on final reading for resolution number 2021-21. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
9 yea and 0 nay.
9 yeas, 0 nay. Moving on to
Motion passes.
motion passes, sorry.
For the record.
For the record, yeah. Moving on, any public comment on any matter not on the agenda? If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak on any item not on the agenda? It looks like we don't have any. So, moving on to calendar and meetings and other events, just please note the dates and times of the meetings. And then, we're at the end of the meeting, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. We'll go by a thumbs up.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.